Hello everyone and welcome to our Genuine Chats. I'd like to introduce my good friend Rachel Davison and I'm Gina Gardner.
Hi folks.
Both of us are international best-selling authors and we run these Genuine Chats once a week looking at a particular theme. And today's theme is integrity. And it's an interesting word and I think many people have a very different understanding of what integrity is. But they often recognise when somebody is not behaving with integrity towards them.
Yes.
And so thought would be a really interesting thing to explore. So what does integrity mean? If one is integral, it means part of the whole, complete, doesn't it?
Yes.
And to be to have integrity is one of those things that you'll often see on job specs.
Yes.
And it's an interesting one because it's a very high level word, but it's not until you dig into the behaviours that you start to get a sense of what integrity is. And often it's when it's missing that you recognise the importance of it.
Yeah, so it's a little bit like the word love and a little bit like the word goodwill.
Yes.
That they get bandied around a lot.
They certainly do, yeah.
But not many people really stop to analyse what those words mean to them, when you break it down, what behaviours are attached to those words, what the antithesis of it is. Yeah, there's a lot of thought.
And I think there's a number of levels. There's when one is behaving with integrity towards others.
Yeah.
And when one is behaving with integrity towards oneself.
Yes.
So for me, I think it's important. Integrity is one of my high core values. And it's around a whole, if you like, it sits on the top of a whole range of other values like trust and respect.
Yes.
And walking your talk, being authentic.
Honour, I think, is another slightly old-fashioned word that doesn't get used a lot. But I think that for me, integrity is
behaving
word for honour.
With honour, that you honour your words, that you do what you say, or just whatever you've said you'll do, that you'll do.
Yep.
And if there's a problem with that then you will communicate and renegotiate. And I think, it's one of those things on which so many other things hang.
Yes. The
relationship that you have with, whether it's your significant other or whether it's with your boss or your colleagues, if they are faithful to their word, then you can trust them. And if you feel you can trust them, then you're prepared to be vulnerable with them. So it's almost like a chain reaction, isn't it? If you feel that people have integrity, and they treat you with integrity and treat others with integrity, then you are far more likely to find that relationship long-standing and one where you can feel you can be yourself.
Well, I think once you've analysed what integrity means to you, then it can be a fantastic foundation stone, can't it, to sort of anchor you. All of these analogies, build upon, all these sort of things. But once you've really understood what your integrity speaks about, then I think it can be the constant sort of cornerstone that you can come back to double check. So there's lots of advice around values and identifying, your three top core values and how these can sort of come back to you in the moments of decision or questioning if somebody's behaviour towards you in the moment is feeling right and all this sort of stuff, isn't it? And I think, working out if what you mean by being true to your integrity is a similar thing, and it's useful to keep in the front of your mind so that you can be present to it when stuff is happening.
And it's
not 10 minutes after, which is usually what I do.
Well, I think that's probably the human condition. I think for me it starts to get really interesting when you talk about people treating you with integrity. We've got a blueprint, haven't we? In the same way, people, you have a blueprint about how you feel when you feel loved, how people are behaving towards you. Integrity is the same. But I wonder how many people treat themselves with integrity.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's probably the one where most people struggle.
Yeah.
That they are more likely to treat other people with integrity than they are to be true to themselves, and to treat themselves with respect and with honesty around who they are, what's important to them, how they're feeling. Because the need to fit in, the need to be liked, the need not to be rejected is very strong.
Yeah.
And I think, it starts to happen very early, that when you see small children, they will lie, have you done such and such? No, not me. And in part, that's because they don't want to get punished, but also they don't want to be out of favour. They want you to approve of them, and so they will tell you what they think you want to hear. And then as they get bigger, that becomes part of their peer group pressure, doesn't it? To behave. And how often are young people put into a situation where they've got to choose between what they know is right and feels as if it has integrity, and what they need to do to belong to that group and be part of that clan, if you like. And so will often do things that they know, they've been brought up to know is absolutely the opposite of what their parents have taught them to do.
Because it can be really hard to stick to your truth and to stand and to be unpopular because of it. And Brené Brown talks about that aspect of how to belong. She talks about how one of the first points to figure out is, are you going to stand firm for who you are? She talks about it in the context of being a Texan woman who was brought up with guns and hunting. It's part of her family tradition. Tradition's the right word, but of course, gun law in America is a really hot topic, and certainly in the circles that she now circulates in, which can be more liberal and, generally speaking, anti-guns. And she talked about being in a party where she was challenged rather passively aggressively by this person who clearly had massive chips on their shoulder about
very well balanced then.
But very big. And so that the whole tone of the conversation around guns was immediately, and literally the tone was very pejorative and sort of, how on earth would any sensible person support guns? Now Brené says about how she made a choice in this moment about how she could have played along and sort of just kept quiet and just been part of the crowd and sort of dodged the direct question that was being asked her, really, or she could stand firm in what her belief is, which is that guns per se are not bad.
They're neutral, aren't they? It's what you do with them.
Yeah. So I'm not going to try and promote guns.
No, not at all.
But Brené has a particular take on it.
Yeah.
And which she says, by the way, doesn't mean that she supports all of the horrific things that are done with guns. So she calmly and assertively stated this whilst her heart was thudding away, because she knew that she was going to be a pariah amongst this group of people, that this controversial statement would set her outside of the group. But she really felt that she had to start somewhere, standing up for her truth. And her truth is she does train her daughter to shoot guns, and they do go hunting, I think, still in their family. And she wasn't going to pretend otherwise, even if it made her unpopular. Okay, so she's using that as a stepping stone to how you, in the moment, when you're under pressure, that's when integrity is tested. Are you going to stick to your integrity and tell the truth, even if it makes you unpopular? And if the answer is no, then you've got some work to do on yourself. And if the answer is yes, then well done, you're on your way to being a centered, truthful, probably contented person who is comfortable in their skin.
Let's bring it though. I mean, guns, and I find guns.
Well, I think she picked on that particularly controversial one.
So emotive, isn't it?
Because lesser subjects you can always fool yourself into saying, well, it doesn't really matter, does it?
Well,
If
I'd like to challenge that, because I was going to bring it down to something which happens very commonly, probably in every person's life, and it's that of gossip.
Yeah, no, that's a good one.
Because, people will be gossiping about somebody, and usually making a judgment about that somebody.
Yeah.
And it's tempting to be part of that. But I would suggest that it's different for me. If people know one another, catching up somebody with a bit of news, that's not gossip. I'm talking about when there is gossip, which is making judgments about people, and talking about those as if those judgments are truth, when they're not. They are simply
or
an
giving
opinion.
away secrets or personal information that you know the person being talked about, isn't out there saying themselves. Yes.
And so, for me, engaging in gossip is something which is a really slippery slope, because if you're going to do it with one person, the chances are it's going to become something that you do with other people. And so gossip, which can be very hurtful to the person who's being spoken about.
Yeah.
As you say, they may have trusted someone with a secret, or something that not a secret in the sense that, but something that's private, that they've shared in confidence, and then suddenly they discover that a third party knows about it.
Yeah.
It's wrong at so many different levels.
Yes, but it's done so often, isn't it? And that's because there's like an immediate intimacy created between somebody who is gossiping and somebody who's listening to the gossip. And it's a false intimacy, isn't it? But it can be an immediate one. And that's why people use it as ways of sort of, getting into a crowd and making friends, because you've got a secret and that's why soap operas are so popular.
I know something you don't know, but if you pretend to be my friend, then I'll let you know.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really good example of where integrity gets eroded.
Yeah. Because quite rightly, somebody could look at you gossiping and say, well, if she's gossiping about
X,
then my news is going to be on the gossip channel very soon too, isn't it? So maybe I'll just keep quiet and won't actually share with this person. So that's the environment it develops, isn't it?
And it becomes more and more difficult in that environment, I think, to know what the truth is, because these things get embellished and become more sensationalized as you talk to people. As you say, that's one of the reasons why soap operas are so popular with people. But at the same time, it can be gossip, but then you talk about bigotry or people who are being unkind about another race, religion, people's shape, fatism, ageism, all the isms that you want to use. And again, to be part of the crowd, to be seen to be belonging, it's a very easy thing initially to slip into that, rather than to stand up and say, do you know what, I don't agree with that. Yeah. That's your opinion, you're entitled to it. Yeah. But actually it's not mine. Yes. And that takes some courage, and I think at times integrity does take courage.
I think it takes a huge amount of courage. Yeah.
Sometimes just to say, I've made a mistake and I'm really sorry. I mean, integrity is a very high core value for me. And I was supposed to do an interview on Monday, and it was a bank holiday, and I completely forgot. And I got an email, and it's because I didn't look at my diary. I tend not to look at the diary at the weekends. Yes. Bank holiday Monday, I didn't look, and I hadn't remembered. Yeah. And I got an email, and I could have made up an excuse. Yeah. But actually, I emailed back and I made an abject apology. Yes. Yeah. I had completely and utterly
Yeah.
made a boob. I'd made a mistake. It
Yeah.
was an honest mistake. It wasn't done deliberately, but
No.
nevertheless, I put somebody else up. And I felt really bad
Yeah.
because I don't like letting people down. And I think, that when you have made a mistake or you have done something that you think looking at it, out of the heat of the moment, that you've said or done something or not said or not done something, and it doesn't sit with your values, then the important thing is, well, there's two things. One, go and put it right so far as is possible, and then learn from that mistake. And I will certainly, make sure that the next, the bank holidays, that I do look at my diary and or I don't arrange anything on those days. And this was somebody in America, so they don't have a bank holiday, so it's a normal working day.
Yeah.
But what does it mean to have integrity for oneself, to be honest, to do what's right? And is that selfish, or does that mean you have integrity? How does selfishness and integrity line up? Because I think lots of people make the assumption that if you put yourself first, that's being selfish, and that doesn't have integrity.
I think that comes down to sort of the wants and needs equation. So if you're pushing your wants over somebody else's needs, assuming that it's within your power to be able to provide this person's needs, but you're putting your wants above them, then I think that's being selfish. I think if you're putting your needs above somebody else's wants, then that's being true to your integrity.
I think that's a really interesting point. But what about if it's your needs against their needs?
Well, I always go with the shamanic view of me first, because outside of you, there is no universe. So, I mean, again, the devil is in the detail of what kind of needs you're actually talking about here, and where's a compromise, and is it possible to, why is it so impossible not to be able to meet your needs and their needs? What is the actual subject matter? But I would, and I'm being true to my integrity here by being honest and saying I would put me first.
And I think it's an interesting one, and I would agree with you that, if you think about the aircraft, they say put your own oxygen mask on first before you go to help other people, because you will then be able to help those other people. And I think for me, it's defining the difference between wants and needs. Self-care is vital. It's something that I've been very bad about in the past. I'm getting better. But for me, there's a real challenge when I recognise that somebody has a need, my tendency is to switch my own needs off, particularly my physical needs, in order to go and service theirs. And then be burning the midnight oil or be getting very tired physically. And I don't have a lot of physical energy. But what I have recognised over time is that if you don't service your needs, if you don't look after yourself effectively and sensibly, then you have less to give other people. And so I think it's being honest with yourself about what is a need and what is a want. And that learning to be able to say to somebody, no, I can't help you at this time, but I may be able to help you in the future. And doing that in a way that has integrity, and you don't lie, because lots of people will make up excuses. I can't do it because I've got to go and see Great Aunt Maud or whatever. Or I'm going to, and I had a member of staff who went to a funeral, and when he was talking about, going to this person's funeral for the third time, I think you need not only to have more integrity, but also you need to get your stories straight.
Well, that's the thing about keeping to your integrity and your truth, is you don't have to have a good memory. Because if you start lying, you have to have a bloody good memory.
You certainly do. But I think for those who are listening, recognising what is your truth for many people is a challenge.
And let's face it, you're put pressure. People will put pressure on, and they will describe their wants as needs.
Yeah.
I mean, teenagers are fantastic for doing this because everything is described as a I need. And I say, well, you don't need, do you? You might want, but you don't need. It's not vital to life, or
Yes.
but everything comes back to you as no, I need. And of course, that's because they haven't worked through their own particular value system, and they haven't sort of had a few of the reality shocks that
And
life
they
gives
are
you.
incredibly good at pressing the guilt button.
Yes.
You know, if you were a loving mother, then you'd give me what I want.
You buy me these really expensive trainers that you really need. You don't need them, do you?
No. But I think for it's part of the life lesson, part of the life condition, isn't it?
Yeah.
To be working out what is our truth and how do we then live within that truth insofar as we can. We've talked about on another talk the 5 commitments of conscious leaders,
right.
And they talk about being above the line or below the line. For me, that's a really great construct. There's no grey areas. You're either living your truth, you're living within integrity, or you're not.
Yes, and I think that's another thing about certainly about modern life is that people try to overcomplicate and make things greyer than they are, when in actual fact life can often be binary.
Yes,
it can come down to a simple side or the other side.
And I think what's important, and the book talks about the fact that we all, however evolved we think we are, we all at times drop below the line.
Yeah.
Because that's part of our survival mechanism. Ego and survival are very closely aligned.
Yeah, and it's part of being human. It's the balance of the universe.
But I think the first thing is, how quickly do we recognise when we've dropped below the line?
Yes.
But that's the first challenge, and there are many challenges. And then what are you going to do about it? Are you going to stay there?
Yes.
And there are occasions as a human being when it's quite nice to wallow below the line.
It's necessary sometimes.
Before then gathering oneself together and then recognising, do you know what? This isn't right. This isn't who I am. No. I'm now going to do things differently.
Because that's another good, interesting point about integrity, is that a lot of perception around integrity is that it's your higher, lighter self. But sometimes there are points around your integrity that are your darker, more shadowed self.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is necessary to stick to your integrity and do something that feels a little bit sort of negative. I don't mean to go out and do unnecessary harm to people or anything. I just mean sometimes it's necessary to be, a day in bed being the depressed person, because that's what your energy is calling for you to do. And to try and not be honouring that aspect of this is a need for me today is not being true to yourself, and is probably storing up emotional issues later. Because I do believe that a lot of mental health issues are caused by people trying to avoid that shadow self of themselves.
I think that's true.
Thinking that they mustn't ever feel bad. And I think you have to feel bad in order to feel good. The key point is, don't stay there any longer than you really have to.
And for me, negative emotions have a very, very core purpose.
Yeah, they're carrying calls.
They're a call to action, to do something different. Yeah. And when we are not sitting comfortably within our values, we become very uneasy, dis-ease, uncomfortable. Yes. And if we continue in that vein, that dis-ease becomes disease, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. Yeah. And so it is about recognizing that balance, that we are both the most amazing creators of good in the world, if we choose to be. But we all of us have the capacity to do bad things. And it's that balance, and it's where you call the halt to say, I've dropped below the line, I'm not staying there, or I've dropped below the line, I'm not going to drop any further. And often people have to hit rock bottom, don't they, before they can recognise the truth in themselves and start to move back up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm using a quote from The Imitation of Christ in my next book, which sort of, you know, it's a clarion call for the story of the book. And the quote, which I'm going to mangle, because I always do.
You're very good at mangling
I'm always
quotes,
mangling quotes, but I sort of remember the essence.
At least you remember the essence more than I do.
It sort of goes like, for a pure heart to exist, it must reach into both heaven and hell.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's talking about the need to embrace all aspects of the universe and to not be false and try to stick to only the nice side.
The nice side doesn't challenge you, does it? The nice side doesn't actually, if it's only that, help you grow.
I think, and also I think there's this, the nice side doesn't exist without the other.
No.
So for purity of heart, you have to be comfortable in both camps.
Yes.
But of course, what the Imitation of Christ doesn't say is, but hey, folks, wallow in hell for as long as you want. You know, be undisciplined and go for it. And neither does it say with all of the lovely side, you know, the joyful, you know, stuff all of those cakes into your mouth and just go for the hedonism and all this. You know,
yes.
Basically, it's talking about a balance, and it's talking about don't be too extreme. Your heart is most pure, to use that writer's terms, when it is on that balance, when it is comfortable with both sides, but it exists mostly on the balance of it.
Yes.
Because that is where purity lies.
And I think if you look at integrity is recognising what is right and what is wrong in the context of your truth, and being able to recognise when you move from one to the other, and being able to move back.
Yeah.
That if you make a mistake or you can't make a commitment or that you put it right. Now, I want to make one caveat. It's not about, you can do wrong so long as you say sorry. That's not what I'm saying.
No, do no unnecessary
harm. But actually, in order to recognise whether you are living a life of integrity, you actually need to consider what for you does integrity mean in the context of your behaviours, in the context of your language, in the context of what you leave undone. It's, as we've said in a slightly different context, the devil's in the detail, isn't it?
Yes.
That we can have these highfalutin values and ideas, but actually it's in the execution of day-to-day living that we demonstrate whether we live a life that's lived with integrity or not.
Yes, and God is in the detail too, of course, not just the devil, because life is, although we've talked about, decisions are binary, they are when you've got down to that granular level, but there's a lot of subtleties and shades that you have to work your way through.
To get to the nitty-gritty, you've got to go, life in many ways presents as a tabby cat of grey.
Yes.
When you get down to the essence, it's fairly black and white.
Yes.
But ultimately, I think most people get stuck in the grey. It becomes foggy. They can't see. I mean, you think of all of the sayings that you have. I can't see the wood for the trees. And I think, what I hope people will do as a result of this, listening to this, is that they will think about their lives. And just, for in the time that there's this, they're listening to this, think about what for them is really important.
Your book has a brilliant exercise on values that can help people sort of work their way through that maze to find what defines integrity to them. And
I think knowing what your core values is incredibly important, because if those values are not being met, then there is a real potential for being unhappy, for illness, for storing up emotional dragons that are going to come back and breathe fire at you.
Anne is saying interesting chat as always.
Oh, thank you, Anne. I hope you're feeling better. I shall see you later. So, recognise for yourself what stands within integrity. And so far as you are able, live within that remit. And if you slip out of it, then put it right so far as you can, say, and apologize, learn from it, so you don't make that mistake again. Now, we'd love to know what you think. What for you does integrity mean? Please, if you're listening to this as a recording, put it in the chat box and let us know. It would be really helpful if you would share this with others, because I think too often these big conversations feel too difficult and people don't actually have them, and as a result they're not clear about that for themselves. So we hope these chats will help you unpick this great tangle of spaghetti for you to identify what's the strand of spaghetti which is integrity for you. As always, there's lots and lots of free resources on the website, which is www.genuinely-you.com. Both books you'll find on there. The Point of Me, which is Rachel's first book, her new one, which is
The Truth of Her,
is soon to come out.
Getting better at saying that.
You are indeed. You will also find a free digital download of my latest best-selling book, Thriving, Not Surviving, The 5 Secret Pathways to Happiness, Success and Fulfillment. You'll also find access to the free TV series, which explores all sorts of issues, and would love to see your comments. So thanks very much for joining us. Same place, same time next week. Take care now. Bye-bye.